At 65, I thought the ship of my life had finally sailed into safe harbor. A monthly pension of 7,000 yuan, an old apartment with the mortgage fully paid off, and a body that still more or less functioned. I'd done the math. As long as I didn't come down with anything catastrophic, the money would carry me to the finish line with dignity intact. Until that Tuesday afternoon. I stopped at the pharmacy to pick up my blood pressure medication. The cashier swiped my medical insurance card, frowned at the screen, and handed it back. "I'm sorry, ma'am. It's showing insufficient funds." That was the moment I discovered the ship hadn't made it to port. It had slammed into an iceberg. The bank card I used to receive my pension, the card that held every last shred of my security, my independence, my self-respect, was gone. "Ma'am, the card's not going through. Insufficient balance." The young cashier offered an apologetic smile as she passed my insurance card back across the counter. Early afternoon sunlight slanted through the glass doors of the pharmacy, spilling a bright rectangle onto the polished floor. I stood squarely in that patch of light, but the warmth never reached me. Instead, a cold, prickling sweat broke out across my back. My health insurance card was linked directly to my primary bank account. Every month, the moment my pension hit, I transferred 5,000 yuan straight onto it. Without fail. The account always carried a cushion of at least 20,000, specifically for emergencies, like days when I walked out the door without cash. Insufficient funds. The 4 syllables burrowed into my chest like splinters of ice. That can't be right. I steadied myself, dug through my cloth bag for my reading glasses, and perched them on my nose. "Try it again, dear." Could be the machine acting up. The cashier obliged, patient, but clearly unconvinced. The result didn't change. Behind me, the line was growing restless. I heard a shuffle of feet, a pointed sigh, the rustle of someone shifting their weight from one leg to the other. My face, seamed with 65 years of living, flushed a deep, scalding red. I had navigated this life without ever making a public spectacle of myself, and now here I was, the old woman holding up the line at the pharmacy. In the end, I set down the box of nifedipine and walked out, nearly stumbling, under the weight of curious stares. The moment I got home, I went straight to the bedroom. Bottom drawer of the nightstand. My private vault. A red lacquered jewelry box with a small brass lock, the kind of thing you'd expect to hold a string of pearls or a jade bracelet. What it actually held was far more precious. My industrial and commercial Bank of China savings card, the sole conduit through which my pension flowed into my hands. The lock was intact. No signs of tampering. I opened the box anyway. The card was gone. A roaring sound filled my head, like someone had cranked a leaf blower to full throttle right next to my ear. That card was my lifeline. The foundation under my remaining years. The only thing standing between me and the kind of old age that terrifies people into sleepless nights. Who would take it? The front door lock was fine. No windows broken. No sign of forced entry anywhere in the apartment. A face surfaced in my mind, unbidden and immediate. My son, William. The previous Sunday, William had come by with my grandson, little Leo. His wife, Clara, hadn't joined them. Working late at the office, he'd said. William hung around for a while, chatted about nothing in particular, and then, around the time I was in the kitchen breading lotus root slices for Leo's favorite dish, he'd excused himself to charge his phone in my bedroom. I'd barely registered it at the time. The oil was heating. Leo was chattering about his new video game. Normal life noises. But that stretch of time, 15 minutes, maybe 20, would have been more than enough. My stomach dropped, a slow, nauseating descent. William was 40. He held a director-level position at a mid-tier design firm. On paper, the salary looked respectable. In practice, their finances were a slow-motion train wreck. 2 years ago, desperate to get Leo into a top-rated elementary school, they drained every account, borrowed from every relative and friend who'd pick up the phone, and scraped together a down payment on a 1,200-square-foot apartment in the best school district. Since then, the monthly mortgage, 12,000 yuan, had squatted on their backs like a boulder they couldn't shake off. I picked up my spare phone, the clunky senior model I used just for calls, and pulled up William's number. My thumb hovered over the dial button. It stayed there for a long time. What was I going to ask him? Did you steal from me, son? And then what? Listen to him cobble together some flimsy, almost plausible excuse, the way he used to do when he was a teenager caught skipping class. The lies would come, smooth and practiced, designed to spare my feelings while protecting his own skin.
No.
My name is Susan Morgan. I spent 4 decades in the accounting department of Riverdale Textile Factory, staring down balance sheets and reconciling discrepancies. I understood numbers. I understood rules. And above all, I understood that when someone breaks the rules, there has to be a consequence. If my own son was willing to cross this line, to treat my existence as his personal emergency fund, to bypass consent entirely, then I no longer had a son in the way I'd always believed. What I had was a liability. I set the phone down without dialing. From the back of my closet, I pulled out a dark blue coat, functional, dignified, and slipped it on. Into my cloth bag went my national ID card and the household registration booklet. In the mirror, my hair was a shock of gray-white, but my expression was preternaturally calm. Still water, frozen over. At 2 o'clock, the ICBC branch was quiet. I took a number slip and sat in the waiting area, running through every step of what came next. I didn't bother checking the balance on the missing card. It didn't matter. Whatever was left, or wasn't, was beside the point. The point was control. And I was taking it back. Ticket A017. Window number 3, please. I rose and walked across the polished floor with deliberate, unhurried steps. I need to report a lost bank card, I told the young woman behind the glass. She wore wire-rimmed glasses and exuded the crisp efficiency of someone who processed paperwork for a living. Of course, ma'am. May I see your identification? I slid my ID under the window. She typed, keys clicking with mechanical precision. A few seconds later, she looked up, a faint crease of surprise between her brows. Ms. Morgan, this card shows a large transaction just this morning. A payment of 36,000 yuan at an auto dealership. Are you certain you want to freeze the account? 36,000. The number hit me like a punch to the sternum. That was a quarter's worth of mortgage payments. William hadn't hesitated. He'd taken the card on Sunday and drained a chunk of it by Monday morning. I kept my face absolutely still. Yes, I heard myself say. The voice didn't sound like mine. It was flat, toneless, stripped of emotion. Immediately. Right now. The teller didn't ask again. She processed the freeze, pushed a receipt slip across the counter, and gave me the standard instructions. Come back in 7 days with a slip and my ID to pick up the replacement card. Thank you. I folded the receipt into my bag and walked out into the pale autumn sunshine. I'd barely cleared the bank's front steps when the phone in my pocket began to shriek. The ringtone was aggressive, insistent. I glanced at the screen. William. I stood on the sidewalk, traffic rushing past in a blur of metal and exhaust, and pressed the answer button. Hello. Mom. William's voice crackled through the speaker, high and tight, frayed at the edges with something between panic and fury. Did you freeze the bank card? Yes. My reply was a single syllable. A stone dropped into still water. No ripple, no splash, just the deep, resonant certainty of its sinking. The line went silent. 5 full seconds. I could hear William breathing, rough, uneven, threaded with the faint electric hiss of the connection. He was wrestling with something, trying to shove it down, but the raw mix of exposure and outrage leaked through anyway. Mom, what the hell? His voice jumped an octave, the veneer of composure cracking. I just made the mortgage payment, and the bank calls to say the account's been frozen. What are you doing? I ignored the indignation. Why was my bank card in your possession? He stalled, the question catching him mid-stride. He hadn't prepared for directness. He'd expected tears, maybe, or wounded silence. Not accounting. I noticed your wallet was getting worn out the other day. I thought I'd surprise you with a new one. So I took the card out, figured I'd put some money on it for you while I was at it. Then work got crazy, and I completely forgot. The lie was so flimsy it practically collapsed under its own weight. A 40-year-old man, forgetting he'd cleaned out his mother's bank account? I had spent my entire career in a world where every cent had to be accounted for, where a 10 yuan discrepancy could mean hours of combing through receipts. William, I said, cutting him off. I'd balanced ledgers for 40 years. Every penny in, every penny out. Do you honestly believe that excuse would hold up in an audit? My voice was quiet, unraised, but each word landed like a needle dipped in antiseptic, sharp, cold, cleansing. The silence returned, heavier this time. He'd even stopped breathing loudly, as if sheer stillness might make him disappear from the conversation. Don't bother spinning another one, I continued. I froze the card myself. Whatever money you already spent, that's on you. The account is dead. As of now. Mom, the explosion finally came, all the suppressed pressure bursting through. His voice pitched into something almost unrecognizable, aggrieved, righteous, wounded. How could you do this? I'm your son. What's wrong with using a little of your money? That apartment isn't for me. It's for Leo. Isn't Leo your grandson? If we can't make the mortgage, all three of us will be sleeping on the street. Is that what you want? The accusations stacked up fast, each one a lead weight designed to drag me under. With any other mother, it probably would have worked. Guilt is a powerful solvent. It dissolves resolve. But I had spent decades learning to spot creative accounting. William, you're 40 years old, not 4. My voice came out harder now, edged with something that felt almost like contempt. If your family ends up on the street, that's a problem for the head of your household to solve. It's not the responsibility of a 65-year-old woman. I raised you to 18, put you through college. My job was done a long time ago. That pension? It's what the government gave me to live out my remaining years, not to subsidize your mortgage. He choked on whatever he'd been about to say. Then in the background, a new voice cut through. Sharp, female, unmistakable. William, give me the damn phone. Stop wasting time with her. Clara. The phone scuffled, muffled, and then she was there, her voice slicing through the earpiece with the precision of a scalpel. Mom, it's Clara. William's useless at explaining things, so let me be direct. What you did, incredibly harsh. We're over here putting out fires, and you go behind our backs and pull something like this? All over a few thousand yuan? Was freezing the card really necessary? It's not like we're going to run off and never pay you back. Her tone carried no deference, no hint of a daughter-in-law addressing her husband's mother. It was the voice of a creditor, someone who believed they were owed. I let out a short, humorless laugh. Clara, let's get something straight. First, I don't owe you anything. You took my money without permission. That's not borrowing. There's a word for that. Second, freezing my own card is entirely within my rights. You don't get a vote. Borrowing? Clara's voice ratcheted higher, a cat whose tail had just been stepped on. Mom, watch your language. William is your flesh and blood. Him taking your money isn't stealing. Since when do children using their parents' money not count as perfectly normal? You've got 7,000 a month, living alone in that big apartment. How much can you possibly spend? We're crammed into a pigeon coop, suffocating under a mortgage. Helping us out a little. Isn't that what family does? Helping. I repeated the word, letting it hang in the air. A cold sensation spread from the soles of my feet, climbing upward until it reached my scalp. I don't see where any of this is my obligation. You wanted the apartment. You chose the lifestyle. You stretched yourselves beyond your means trying to keep up appearances, and now that the bills come due, you think everyone else should empty their pockets to bail you out? That's not how the world works. Fine. Clara spat, her voice curdling into something venomous. Fine. That's not how the world works. I see you now, Susan. I see exactly who you are. A selfish old woman clutching her money like it's coming with her to the grave. You win. You froze the card? Great. Don't expect us to take care of you when you're too old to wipe your own ass. And don't expect to see Leo ever again. The line went dead. I stood on the sidewalk, the phone humming faintly in my grip. Early autumn wind threaded through the gaps in my coat, carrying the first real chill of the season. I pulled the collar tighter. It didn't help. Clara's parting shot had found its mark with surgical precision. Leo. My grandson. Round-faced, gap-toothed smile, eyes that crinkled into crescent moons when he laughed. The weight of him on my lap, the smell of his hair after a bath, the way he'd tug my sleeve and demand I make him lotus root fritters. The ice around my heart developed a crack. And it hurt. Just past 6 that evening, with dusk settling into the corners of the sky, my front door shuddered under a barrage of pounding. It wasn't knocking. It was a demand for entry, the kind of noise that said, "Open up or we'll open it for you." I checked the peephole. William and Clara flanked the door like a pair of hostile sentries, faces carved from stone. William looked haggard, frayed, dark smudges under his eyes. Clara was pure incandescent fury, her gaze sharp enough to draw blood. I took a breath, unlocked the door, and pulled it open. They swept past me like a weather front. Clara didn't bother changing her shoes. Her heels clicked an aggressive rhythm across the floor I'd just mopped that morning, leaving a trail of gray scuff marks in their wake. "Mom, you're going to unfreeze that card. Today." William launched in before I'd even fully closed the door, his voice carrying an edge of command I'd never heard from him in 40 years. I didn't answer. I walked past him into the living room, settled into my armchair, and poured myself a glass of warm water from the thermos on the side table. "I told you," I said, taking a sip. "That account is closed. I'll pick up the replacement in 7 days." "You." William's face purpled, his fists clenching at his sides. Clara let out a sharp laugh and dropped onto the sofa opposite me, crossing her arms in a way that telegraphed negotiation. "Mom, we didn't come here to fight. Let's put all the cards on the table. What exactly do you want?" "What do I want?" I lowered the glass, blew softly across the steam still rising from the water. "I think I should be asking you that. What do you want? To drain every last cent of my retirement, leave me destitute and sleeping under an overpass? Would that finally make you happy?" "Don't be so dramatic," Clara snapped. "Nobody's draining anything. We're talking about borrowing. It's not like we weren't going to pay it back." William's company hit a rough patch, cash flows tight. "You think we'd have touched your precious card otherwise? Consider it a bridge loan. Once things turn around, we'll pay you back with interest. Happy borrowing." I set the glass down with a deliberate clink and fixed my gaze on William. "When you borrow something, you ask the owner's permission. You sign a promissory note. Did you ask me, William? Did you put anything in writing? Taking without asking has a name. It's a lesson I taught you when you were a child. Did you forget?" William's eyes slid away from mine. He couldn't hold my gaze for more than a second. His head dropped, the picture of a boy caught with his hand in the cookie jar. Seeing her husband fold like wet cardboard, Clara's irritation flared. She shot to her feet and began pacing the length of my living room, heels drilling into my nerves with every step. "Fine, fine. We were wrong not to tell you first. Is that what you want to hear? We're apologizing, okay? You're the elder. We're the juniors. Be the bigger person. Unfreeze the card, let us sort out the bank, and we'll put this whole thing behind us. This affects our credit rating, Mom. If our credit tanks, it could screw up Leo's chances of studying abroad someday. You want your own grandson's future ruined over a few thousand yuan." There it was again. The Leo card. Her trump card. My soft spot. I fell silent. The living room air thickened, congealing into something heavy and still. The only sound was the quartz clock on the wall, ticking away with mechanical indifference. Each click was a tiny hammer tap against my heart. William, sensing the shift, seized the opening. He crossed to my chair and crouched beside me, tilting his face up to meet mine, voice going soft and pleading. "Mom, I know I screwed up. I shouldn't have gone behind your back. But I was desperate. The big project I was counting on? It fell through. My bonus for this quarter? Gone. I might even be looking at a pay cut. Clara doesn't know. I've been hiding it from her because I couldn't handle the fallout. Mom, please. Help me out. Just this one last time. I swear, it's the last time." His eyes glistened. His voice cracked. 40 years old, and in that moment, he looked exactly like the little boy who used to crawl into my lap after a nightmare. Something in my chest gave a treacherous squeeze. And then Clara's phone rang. She glanced at the caller ID, turned away, and stepped toward the balcony, sliding the glass door shut behind her. But not quite all the way. Her voice, though lowered, sliced through the gap with the unmistakable brightness of a woman mid-transaction. "Hey, Mrs. Wang." Yes, I've decided. That Hermes bag, the new one we talked about? Hold it for me. Money's not a problem. William just got a big project bonus. Yeah, I'll swing by next week to pick it up." The words hit me like ice water dumped over my head. The flicker of sympathy I'd felt a moment earlier? Gone. Extinguished. Not even a wisp of smoke remained. I rose from my chair, slowly, deliberately. William was still crouched on the floor, his pleading expression now frozen into something uncertain. "Get up," I said. He blinked. "I want to show you both something." I walked to my bedroom, retrieved the old ledger from its drawer, and carried it back to the living room. When Clara stepped in from the balcony, tucking her phone away with a satisfied little smile, I was waiting. "This is my account book." I laid it open on the coffee table. The pages were filled with my handwriting, small, neat columns, every entry dated and categorized. My monthly pension is 7,000 yuan. Breakdown: utilities and property fees, 800. Groceries, 1,500. Social obligations, gifts, whatnot, 500. Medications and regular checkups, 1,000. That's 3,800 in fixed costs. I turned the page. The remaining 3,200 is split into two categories. 1,200 goes into a travel fund. I want to see mountains and oceans while my legs still work. The other 2,000 goes into an emergency reserve. That's for when I get sick. Hospital bills. A live-in caregiver if it comes to that. I've calculated that if nothing catastrophic happens, by the time I'm 80, that reserve will hold around 360,000 yuan. That money is my dignity. It's the reason you won't have to feed me, bathe me, or change my diapers when I'm old. My voice was perfectly level. A recitation of facts. William and Clara were frozen, their faces slack with something I'd rarely seen before. The dawning realization that I had a plan, a detailed one, and they had never featured in it as beneficiaries. So, I looked up from the ledger, meeting Clara's eyes, then William's. "You've helped yourselves to my money to paper over the cracks in your overspending." "Fine. Now tell me, who's going to fill the hole in my old age?" "You." The question landed like a boulder dropped into the center of the living room. William and Clara stared at me, their expressions suspended somewhere between shock and something that looked almost like embarrassment, though with Clara, it was hard to tell whether the flush on her cheeks was shame or just fury struggling to find an outlet. The phrase she'd tossed off on the phone not 5 minutes earlier, *big project bonus*, still echoed in the air, an invisible indictment. Now, faced with my ledger, with the meticulous arithmetic of a widow's survival, her earlier swagger seemed to curdle. "Mom, you can't really keep accounts like this," Clara said, forcing a laugh that came out brittle and unconvincing. "Family doesn't nickel and dime each other. Your money is our money. And when you're older, of course we'll take care of you. That's what families do." "Is it?" I picked up the ledger and tapped its cover lightly. "Because less than 2 hours ago, on this very phone, you informed me that I shouldn't expect a single thing from you ever again. That I'd die alone and unvisited. Clara, a person's heart can only take so much testing. Trust is like this paper." I pinched a page between my fingers. Crumple it, and even if you smooth it flat again, it will never be the same. The color drained from Clara's face. She hadn't realized I'd heard. She'd assumed the balcony door, slightly ajar, had given her privacy. Now she understood that I'd absorbed every syllable, the casual cruelty, the lie about the bonus, the easy betrayal. William's head had sunk so low his chin nearly touched his chest. His hands worked against each other, knuckles cracking. "Mom, Clara didn't mean it. It was just angry talk. You know how she gets." "I don't care if she meant it or not." I closed the ledger and set it aside. "I care about what's real, what's written down, what I can hold in my hand. William, you're my son. I want you to succeed more than anyone. But success doesn't mean leeching off your aging mother. It doesn't mean mortgaging my remaining years to fund a lifestyle you can't afford. It means building something with your own 2 hands. I turned to Clara, my voice hardening. Clara, you're an adult with a job. The Hermes bags, the luxury facials, the curated Instagram life. That's on you to earn. Not on me. Your child's education matters? Fine. My survival matters too. Your credit score matters? My emergency medical fund matters just as much. You don't get to torch my safety net to keep yourself warm. The words landed like a flaying. Layer by layer, I was peeling back the polite fictions, the we're family, the it's only temporary, the of course we'll pay you back, and exposing the raw, ugly entitlement underneath. Clara's face cycled through a palette of emotions, white to red to something mottled and splotchy. Her mouth opened and closed. For once, the woman who always had a sharp retort ready had nothing to say. Her arsenal of manipulation had run dry against the immovable wall of simple, irrefutable arithmetic. Then, from the hallway outside, a voice rang out. "Oh, William and Clara are here. Visiting Susan again? Susan, you're so blessed. Such a devoted son and daughter-in-law, coming by all the time." It was Mrs. Wong from across the hall. Big voice, big heart, even bigger mouth. Clara's expression curdled instantly. Of all things, Clara prized appearances above everything. The image of the perfect family, the enviable lifestyle, the harmonious multi-generational household, that was the currency she traded in. And now the neighborhood gossip had caught them mid-battle, the air still thick with accusations and slammed phones. Clara forced her face into a rictus of pleasantness and cracked the door open. "Mrs. Wong." "Yes, just checking in on Mom. You're back from the market?" "Oh, yes. Mrs. Wong craned her neck, trying to peer past Clara into the apartment. "Well, I'll leave you to your visit. Such a lovely family." The moment the door clicked shut, the smile evaporated from Clara's face. She whirled on me, voice dropping to a venomous hiss. "Happy now? You had to make a scene? You had to let the whole building know our private business." I didn't make a scene. I met her glare, without flinching. "The only person who's been shouting is you. The only person who's been threatening and slamming things is you. You." Clara's entire body trembled. She looked like a kettle about to scream. Then she wheeled on William, jabbing a finger toward him. "William, last chance. Are you getting the money back, or not? Because if you don't, we're done. I mean it. The ultimate weapon. Divorce." William stood frozen between us, his face the color of old ashes. He looked at me, and I saw pleading. He looked at Clara, and I saw fear. Caught in the crossfire of 2 immovable forces, he seemed to shrink, to diminish, to become less than the sum of his years. My heart did something complicated. He was my son. I'd carried him, raised him, stayed up nights with him through fevers and heartbreaks. Watching him twist in the wind like this, it cost me. But I also knew that if I bent today, I would never stand straight again. It wasn't one step back. It was my whole future. I rose from my chair and walked over to where William stood. I looked him in the eye and spoke with absolute clarity. "William, this is your road. You choose. Be a man who shoulders his responsibilities and stands on his own feet, or stay a child, hiding behind his wife and his mother, never growing up. Decide." I didn't wait for an answer. I turned and walked into my bedroom, pulling the door shut behind me with a soft, final click. I didn't lock it, but it may as well have been a vault door. On the other side, the storm raged. Clara's voice, shrill and cracking. William's, low and defensive and utterly ineffective. The sharp crash of something, glass, shattering against the floor. The back and forth, accusations and recriminations, a marital meltdown in surround sound. Then Clara's voice cut through, loud enough to pierce drywall. 3 days, William. Either your mother hands over the money, or I'll see you at the divorce office. The staccato of heels. The front door slamming hard enough to rattle the windows. Then silence. The quiet that settled over the apartment felt heavier than the shouting had been. I waited a long moment, then opened my bedroom door. The living room was a disaster zone. The glass that had shattered was one of my drinking cups. Shards glittered across the hardwood like scattered diamonds, sharp and treacherous. A testament to someone's rage, or someone's desperation. It was hard to tell which. William hadn't left. He was on the sofa, elbows on his knees, face buried in his hands. His shoulders, once broad and capable, were hunched inward, shaking with the effort of holding something back. The sound that escaped through his fingers was ragged, wet, utterly broken. A 40-year-old man crying. I retrieved the broom and dustpan from the corner and began sweeping. Glass scraped against the floor with a thin, abrasive shushing sound that filled the silence. "Mom?" William's voice came out wrecked, scraped raw. "Am I really that useless?" My hand paused mid-sweep. I didn't turn around. "What do you think?" "I think I am." A hollow laugh, devoid of humor. "I thought moving into a bigger place, giving Clara and Leo a better life. I thought that would make me somebody. A success. I didn't realize that apartment would turn into a black hole. It sucked up everything.
My salary.
My energy. My pride." He lifted his head. His eyes were red-rimmed, bloodshot, swimming with a despair I'd never seen before. And now it sucked up my last shred of decency. He took a shuddering breath. "Mom, the project I told you about. It's not just delayed.
It's dead.
And the company's talking about layoffs. I'm probably on the list. I didn't tell Clara because she already thinks I'm a failure for not earning more. If she finds out I'm about to be unemployed," he trailed off, but the conclusion hung unspoken between us. Divorce. Custody battle. The complete unraveling of everything. So that was it. The real reason he'd raided my account. Not a temporary cash flow hiccup. A preemptive strike against looming catastrophe. He was trying to plug the biggest hole, the mortgage, before the ship went down entirely, buying himself a few extra weeks to figure something out. I felt the broom handle go slick in my grip. My heart was a knot of tangled threads, anger, disappointment, grief, and underneath it all, a raw, maternal ache I couldn't suppress. He was in deeper than I'd imagined. "I tried to borrow from friends," he continued, the words spilling out now like a confession he'd been holding underwater. "But after the down payment 2 years ago, I'd already tapped out everyone I knew. Now my calls go to voicemail. I'm toxic. No one wants to touch me. I was out of options. I saw the card in your drawer, and something just snapped. I told myself I'd pay it back as soon as I found a new job. I wasn't trying to steal from you, Mom. I swear it. He looked at me, eyes glassy with desperation. A drowning man reaching for anything that might float. The quartz clock on the wall ticked. Each second felt like a small verdict. Then William's phone lit up on the coffee table. A WeChat notification. He glanced at it reflexively, and I saw his entire body go rigid. Every muscle locked. His face, already pale, drained to something that looked almost posthumous. He tried to hide the screen, but I'd already caught the preview. The sender's profile picture was Clara and Leo, smiling. The message was brutally short. Asterisk divorce papers are drafted. Signing tomorrow. Don't even think about custody of Leo, asterisk. Whatever fragile resolve William had managed to pull together shattered, like the glass on my floor. His hands trembled violently. His lips moved, but no sound came out. Then he stood up. Too fast. Something wild flickered in his eyes. "Mom, I'm sorry." His voice was hollowed out, emptied of everything. And then he did something I did not expect. He crossed the space between us in 3 urgent strides and dropped. Straight down. His knees hit the floor with a sound that was somehow worse than the breaking glass had been. "Mom." He didn't shout it, didn't sob it. His voice was flat, dead, terrifyingly calm. "I'm begging you.
Give me the money.
This is the last time I'll ever ask. If I don't fix this, my family is gone. I can't lose Leo. Please." I stood rooted to the floor, broom still in hand, staring down at my son on his knees. I'd imagined this moment in a dozen different ways, him shouting, him bargaining, him spinning more elaborate lies. Never this. Never him weaponizing his own humiliation. He was using his knees to crush my principles. The world tilted, just slightly. Through the living room window, the neighbor's light spilled in, casting his kneeling silhouette across the floor in a long, distorted shadow. It seemed to stretch toward me, envelop me, a darkness I couldn't step out of.
Give in?
Or hold the line. The question pressed down on me with the weight of every one of my 65 years. He stayed on his knees, a statue of abject surrender. The air in the living room had thickened to the consistency of oil. Every second stretched, pulled thin until I could feel the individual tick of the clock inside my chest. My heart hammered, blood thrumming a frantic rhythm in my ears. I looked at him, at the son I'd nursed, taught to walk, coached through multiplication tables and first heartbreaks. His hair was thinning at the crown. Fine lines spiderwebbed from the corners of his eyes. Time and pressure had carved their signatures deep into his face. And here he was on the floor, reduced to this. My heart swam in something bitter and corrosive. But underneath the ache, a colder voice spoke with perfect clarity. No. If kneeling worked today, what would tomorrow bring? A rope around his neck? A bottle of pills on my nightstand? This wasn't a plea for help. It was a hostage situation. And the hostage was the last shred of our mutual dignity. I breathed.
In. Out.
I forced the storm inside me to quiet. I didn't reach down to help him up. Not yet. Instead, I lowered myself into a crouch, bringing my eyes level with his. My knees protested, old joints creaking. William. My voice came out soft but unyielding. Get up. He didn't move. He just stared at me with that hollow, desperate hope, like a man who'd bet everything on a final throw of the dice. Get up, I repeated, putting steel behind the word. You're on your knees, and that means we can't talk. Not as equals. If you still see me as your mother, if there's any of the boy I raised left in there, you'll stand up and face me like a man. Something flickered in his expression, a faint crack in the wall of desperation. He hesitated, the internal war playing out across his features. Then, slowly, stiffly, he pushed himself upright. His knees made a small popping sound as he straightened. He sank onto the sofa, spine rigid, hands clamped on his thighs. A man awaiting sentencing. I'm not giving you the money. I said it plainly, no preamble, no softening. The words landed like a door slamming shut. His shoulders collapsed inward. The last light in his eyes died. But I held up a hand. I will help you. His head jerked up. Confusion warred with a wary, fragile hope. William, I've handled money my whole life. I know what happens when you throw cash into a bottomless pit. The pit doesn't fill up. It just gets deeper. Your problem isn't a missed mortgage payment. It's that you've lost control. Entirely. I pulled a chair over and sat down across from him, adopting the posture I'd used for 4 decades across from nervous department heads and sloppy bookkeepers. Give me your phone. He blinked, uncomprehending, but handed it over. Unlock it.
He did.
I opened his WeChat, his Alipay, and then every banking app on the device.
Now.
Your payment passwords. Bank logins. Everything. William's mouth fell open. Mom, what are you?
I'm auditing you.
I met his eyes and held them. Starting today, I'm taking over your finances. Every account. Every transaction. I want to see where every yuan has gone. Because the only way to save a sinking ship is to plug every hole. One by one. The color that had begun to return to his face drained away again. This was worse than refusal. Refusal was just a closed door. This was me walking through the door, opening every drawer, reading every diary entry. This was the complete and total surrender of his financial adulthood. Clara will never agree to that, he said weakly. Clara's agreement is your problem, not mine. I didn't blink. You have 2 choices, William. Listen carefully. I raised one finger. Option 1. You refuse. I call the police and report the theft of my bank card. The amount is 36,000 yuan. That's a felony. You'll do time. You'll have a criminal record. And I promise you, Clara will not wait around for an ex-con with no job and no prospects. You'll lose Leo.
Permanently.
His face went gray. I raised a second finger. Option 2. You accept my terms. I take over your books. I restructure your debt. I build you a functional budget. I'll use my network to help you find a new job. I'll even lend you a sum, not to throw at the mortgage, but to serve as an emergency cushion for the next few months while you get back on your feet. But it'll be a proper loan, with a signed promissory note. Interest. Repayment terms. The whole thing. I sat back. You have until morning to decide. If you pick option 2, I expect to see every bank statement, every credit card bill, every online lending record, for both you and Clara, on this table by breakfast. Every single page. I stood, handed his phone back, and walked toward my bedroom. You can leave now, or you can sleep in your old room. Your choice. I closed the door behind me, and this time I turned the lock. I leaned against the door, and the strength I'd been holding in my spine dissolved. My hands were shaking. My heart was shaking. I just pushed my son to the edge of a cliff and told him to choose between jumping and letting me pull him back by the collar. I was gambling. Gambling that somewhere beneath the lies and the desperation, there was still a man who wanted to be saved. That the boy I'd raised hadn't been entirely consumed by the weak, frightened adult he'd become.
I didn't sleep that night.
I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening. The apartment was never fully silent. I heard him pacing. I heard the low, strained murmur of his voice through the wall. On the phone with Clara, the conversation punctuated by long silences and sudden, sharp bursts of sound that might have been shouting or might have been weeping. Just before dawn, everything went quiet.
I didn't know what that silence meant.
I only knew that when the sun cleared the windowsill, I would walk out of this room and discover whether I still had a son, or whether I'd lost him forever. At 7 o'clock the next morning, I rose on schedule. When I opened my bedroom door, I stopped. William was still there. He was sitting on the living room sofa in the same rumpled clothes from the day before. His eyes were a road map of broken capillaries. A scruff of dark stubble shadowed his jaw. He looked like a man who'd spent the night fighting a war and had only barely survived. On the coffee table in front of him sat a thick stack of paper, neatly aligned, waiting. My heart settled back into its proper place.
He'd chosen.
I crossed the room without a word, picked up the stack, and began to page through it. The top sheet was William's bank statement, going back 18 months. Every transaction was highlighted in fluorescent yellow. Below that, Clara's statement, marked the same way. Behind those, credit card bills, one after another, dense columns of numbers. And at the very bottom, printouts from several online lending platforms, the kind with interest rates that should have been illegal. I scanned the numbers. My stomach tightened. Clara agreed to this? I asked, my voice coming out rougher than I intended. William nodded. We talked all night. She screamed. She cried. Finally, I told her that if she didn't cooperate, we were done. We'd sell the apartment, split whatever was left, and I'd fight her for custody with everything I had. He paused, and something flickered in his exhausted eyes, a ghost of steel I hadn't seen before. She printed the statements this morning. I could picture it. The years of Clara's uncontested reign over their household, her sharp tongue and sharper ultimatums, finally meeting resistance. William, the son who'd always been too soft for his own good, had stood his ground.
For perhaps the first time in his marriage.
Where is she now? Her mother's place. He looked away. She said she needed space. To see if I can actually fix things. That was probably the best possible outcome. Clara's temporary retreat gave us room to work without her hovering, second-guessing, undermining. I nodded.
Good.
Let's begin. I pulled out my reading glasses and uncapped a red pen. The same kind I'd used for decades, marking errors and ledgers, circling discrepancies. For the next 4 hours, we sat at that coffee table and dissected their financial life with surgical precision. I made him explain every large, inexplicable line item. This one. My red pen circled a charge. 18,000 yuan. Ever Young Aesthetics Clinic. What's this? William's voice dropped to nearly nothing. Clara's skincare membership. I circled another. 23,000. Overseas luxury consignment.
A bag.
She bought a bag. And this? $8,800 to a fitness center? 5-year membership. She said all her friends were going there. It was about status. He rubbed his face. She went twice. The red circles multiplied, spreading across the pages like a rash. Clara's spending was a black hole, voracious and insatiable, sucking in money faster than William could earn it. And William, desperate to maintain a fragile domestic peace, had enabled every bit of it with silence and supplementary credit cards. The numbers at the bottom of the page made me feel faint. Beyond the mortgage, they were carrying nearly $150,000 in credit card debt and another $50,000 across various lending apps. Most of it had been converted, directly or indirectly, into the designer clothes in Clara's closet and the expensive creams on her vanity. Why didn't you stop her? I put the pen down and looked at him. William's eyes squeezed shut. Every time I brought it up, she'd start a fight. Tell me I wasn't a real man, that I couldn't give her the life she deserved. She said she didn't sign up for poverty. And I was scared she'd leave. So, you let her burn your house down to keep her warm? He had no answer. The silence was its own confession. When the last charge had been accounted for and the full, ugly picture lay exposed between us, I pulled out a fresh sheet of paper. Here's what's going to happen. First, every credit card gets canceled. Today, you keep one, the lowest limit one, for genuine emergencies. Second, that gym membership.
Call them.
See if you can get a partial refund. Whatever you can't recover, list it on a resale platform. Same with any packages or prepaid services Clara's not using. Third, I met his eyes. The luxury goods. I don't care how you manage it, but Clara is going to select at least half of those bags and accessories and sell them. The money goes straight to the credit card balances. William's face twisted. Mom, she's not going to agree to that. Those bags, they're like her identity. Then she can choose, I said flatly. Her identity or her marriage. William, you don't clean out an infected wound without pain. If you don't have the stomach for this, tell me now and we'll stop. I'll walk away and you can go back to drowning. He wrestled with it, jaw working. Then, slowly, painfully, he nodded. Fourth, I kept writing. From this point forward, all household income flows through me. I'll set your monthly budget. I'll allocate what goes to debt repayment, what goes to savings, and what you get to live on. Everything above that baseline gets redirected until you're clear. It was draconian, absurd, even a 40-year-old man being put on an allowance by his mother. But I'd spent enough years in accounting to know that people in financial freefall don't need gentle suggestions. They need guardrails. Hard ones. To my surprise, William didn't push back. He looked at the list of rules, each one a small amputation of his autonomy, and something in his posture actually relaxed. The tension in his shoulders eased, just fractionally. Maybe, after years of carrying secrets and debt and the crushing weight of appearances, having someone else take the wheel felt less like humiliation and more like relief.
My phone rang.
The number on the screen was local, but unfamiliar. I answered. Hello. Am I speaking with Ms. Susan Morgan? This is David Kim from Apex Talent Search. I'm an executive recruiter. A former colleague of yours, a Mr. Liu from Riverdale Textile, gave me your contact information. My heart gave a sudden, hard thump. Mr. Kim, hello. I kept my voice steady, gesturing sharply at William to stay quiet. Ms. Morgan, I'll get right to it, the recruiter said, his tone brisk and professional. We've been retained by a major retail group to find an experienced financial audit consultant for a new project they're launching. They're looking for someone with deep experience in cost control, sharp attention to detail, and a no-nonsense approach to compliance. Mr. Liu recommended you in the strongest possible terms. My mind raced. Financial audit consultant? That wasn't my profile at all. I'd been a factory accountant, solid but unglamorous, and I'd been retired for years. But I recognized what this was. Mr. Liu, my old supervisor from the factory, was doing me a favor. 2 nights ago, when I'd committed to pulling William out of his tailspin, I'd called Mr. Liu and asked if he knew of any opportunities. I hadn't expected results this quickly. "You're very kind," I said, modulating my tone. "But I'm afraid I'm a bit past my prime for a new full-time role. However, I may have someone even better suited for what you're describing." I switched the phone to speaker and set it on the coffee table, motioning William closer. "Oh,
I'm listening.
my son, William Morgan. He's 40, with 15 years of experience in project management and cost control in the design sector. Most recently, he was a director at Meridian Creative. Due to company restructuring, he's exploring new opportunities. His background in managing complex projects, overseeing budgets, and coordinating cross-functional teams aligns very well with what you just described." I laid out William's credentials in crisp, precise terms, emphasizing the cost control expertise I'd reverse-engineered from the wreckage of his personal finances. It wasn't a lie, he did have those skills. He'd just stopped applying them to his own life. The recruiter was quiet for a moment, evaluating. "Design sector interesting. This new retail concept does have a heavy experiential component. Someone with an eye for aesthetics and user experience could be a real asset. Ms. Morgan, is your son available to speak with me now? Just a brief initial conversation." "Of course." I handed the phone to William. His fingers were trembling. He looked at me, and in that look I saw a complicated swirl of emotions, shock, gratitude, and a sharp, stinging awareness that his mother was still cleaning up his messes. I gave him a single, firm nod. "Get it together." He took a breath, straightened his spine, and lifted the phone. "Mr. Kim, this is William Morgan. Thanks for taking the time." His voice had shifted. The defeated, broken man from an hour ago was gone, replaced by someone professional, articulate, in command of his material. For the next 20 minutes, I watched my son conduct an impromptu phone interview in the middle of my living room. He talked about past projects, the challenges, the budgets, the solutions. He described balancing creative vision against hard financial constraints. He discussed team leadership, stakeholder management, crisis resolution. He was good. He was really good. I sat back and listened, my chest tight with something that was half pride and half grief. My son wasn't incompetent. He never had been. He'd simply buried his competence under layers of avoidance, enabling, and the slow poison of a marriage built on appearances. All he'd needed was a hard shove in the right direction. When the call ended, William sat motionless, phone still in hand. "Mr. Kim wants me to come in for a formal interview this afternoon," he said. His voice was strange, subdued, almost reverent. "He wants me to bring my resume."
Mom.
He looked up at me, and his eyes were wet. "Thank you." The word carried more weight than all his pleading and kneeling ever had. "You're welcome." I let the moment breathe, then brought us back to earth. I opened a door. "Walking through it is your job. Now you have something else to handle." He knew what I meant. He picked up his phone, walked to the balcony, and slid the door shut. Through the glass, I watched him dial. I saw his posture change, shoulders squaring, chin lifting. Whatever passed between him and Clara, I couldn't hear the words, but I could read the body language. No cowering, no pleading, just a man delivering hard truths. "Clara, I have an interview this afternoon. Better job, better pay. But the company does background checks. Thorough ones. A candidate drowning in debt won't make the cut."
Pause.
Her voice, tinny and indistinct, spiking through the earpiece. "I need you to do something. Go through your closet. The bags, the jewelry, the things you don't use. All of it goes on the resale platforms today. The money goes to the credit cards. This is non-negotiable. More spikes." I could imagine the color of her language. "You can agree, and we fix this together. Or you can refuse, and I'll see you at the lawyer's office. We sell the apartment, clear the debts, split what's left. And I will fight you for custody with everything I have. Your choice." A long, fraught silence. Then, something in William's posture shifted, a subtle release of tension. He hung up and came back inside. "She agreed," he said. His face was unreadable, but something in his voice had changed. A quiet authority that hadn't been there before. "She's going to sort through everything today." I nodded. That phone call, I realized, might have been the first time in their marriage that William had drawn a line in the sand and meant it. The balance of power in their household had just undergone a seismic shift. My son, it seemed, had finally grown up. The following days unfolded like a domestic revolution in fast forward. William attacked the plan with a ferocity I hadn't seen in him since his 20s. That same afternoon, after nailing the interview, he'd called to tell me it went better than expected, which from William was practically a victory lap. He came home and began the purge. From Clara's walk-in closet, he hauled out 7 designer handbags and a small mountain of jewelry she'd accumulated over years of aspirational spending. She hadn't returned from her mother's yet, but the fact that she'd given him the access codes to the apartment without a fight was, in itself, a form of surrender. I watched as he spread the haul across my living room floor. Some of the bags still had protective wrapping, tags dangling, never used. Together, they represented enough money to cover a full year of mortgage payments. Take photos, I directed from my armchair. Good lighting. Show any flaws honestly. Write descriptions that sell. Mention the original packaging, the authenticity cards. Price them to move. So William, a 40-year-old design director, spent an evening learning to photograph luxury handbags. He adjusted angles, fiddled with lighting, typed and retyped listings on his phone. Watching him, I felt a twist of something complicated, heartbreak and hope braided together. Like new condition, minor wear on hardware, includes dust bag and authenticity card. He muttered, thumbing in the text. He looked like a man performing last rites over a life he was letting go. The listings went live. Within hours, inquiries poured in. We'd priced everything 10 to 15% below market to ensure fast turnover. In less than 3 days, most of it was gone. The proceeds, just over 110,000 yuan, combined with the 50,000 I'd agreed to lend as bridge funding, were enough to wipe out every credit card balance and every predatory online loan. William sat on my sofa, staring at his banking app, watching the last red number flip to 0. His eyes glistened. "Mom," he said, his voice thick. "I don't think I've felt this light in 10 years." The weight of debt was a physical thing, I knew. Its absence was like setting down a suitcase you'd forgotten you were carrying. A week later, 2 pieces of good news arrived within hours of each other. First, William passed the second-round interview. The offer came through at 30% above his previous salary, with a title bump to senior project director. Second, my new bank card was ready. I walked to the ICBC branch, filled out the paperwork, and tucked the fresh card into my red jewelry box. This time, I hung the key on a chain around my neck, where it settled against my collarbone, cool and reassuring. That evening, Clara came home. She stood in my doorway with a small suitcase, looking diminished. The sharp edges I'd come to associate with her, the aggressive confidence, the barely concealed contempt, had softened into something uncertain. She'd lost weight. Her makeup was minimal. Her eyes swept the living room, taking in the absence of clutter, the clean surfaces where luxury shopping bags had once piled up. Then they found me. "Mom." The word came out small, tentative. I nodded. William guided her to the sofa and walked her through everything. The sold bags, the cleared debts, the new job, the household budget I designed for them, granular down to daily spending limits. Clara listened without interrupting, without arguing. When he finished, she reached into her purse and pulled out a bank card. She set it on the coffee table. "This is my salary account," she said. Her voice was quiet but steady. "I've always handled my own money. From now on, I want you to manage it. For the household." I studied her. Something had shifted behind her eyes. The brittle defensiveness was gone. In its place was something that looked almost like relief. "At my mother's house," she continued, not quite meeting my gaze, "she called me an idiot. She said a family isn't built on handbags. It's built on people. She said I was throwing away a good man and a good life because I was too proud to live within my means." She turned to William, and her voice cracked.
"I'm sorry.
"For all of it. For the pressure. For the way I talked to you.
You didn't deserve that."
William took her hand. "It's done." We're starting fresh. I watched them, this couple who'd spent years locked in a toxic dance of spending and silence, now sitting in my living room like survivors of a shipwreck. Something in my chest eased, just slightly. But I didn't take Clara's card.
Keep it, I said.
I've straightened out your books. I've shown you the road. But I won't walk it for you. I won't be around forever, and you need to learn to manage yourselves. I went to my bedroom and returned with a new ledger, a clean, empty one, identical to mine. This is your household account book. Starting today, you record every expense. At the end of each month, you bring it to me for review. If I see slippage, we'll talk. If I don't, you're on the right track. Give a man a fish he eats for a day. Teach him to budget, and maybe he won't raid his mother's retirement fund again. William and Clara accepted the ledger with the gravity of people receiving a sacred text. They promised to be diligent. They promised to be better. As they were leaving, Clara hesitated at the door. She turned back, worrying her lower lip between her teeth. Mom, this weekend, could we bring Leo over? To see you. The question landed softly, a feather after a storm. Something inside me, something I'd been holding rigid and armored for weeks, finally unclenched. Bring him, I said. I'll make his favorite lotus root fritters. Life settled back into a rhythm, but it wasn't the old rhythm. Something fundamental had shifted beneath the surface, like tectonic plates grinding into a new configuration. Everyone felt it. William threw himself into the new job with a vigor I hadn't seen since his early career. The hours were long, the learning curve steep, but he came home energized rather than drained. He started calling me not to ask for things, but to talk, really talk about challenges at work, thorny personnel issues, strategic decisions he was weighing. Our conversations evolved from the old, worn parent-child script into something resembling a dialogue between equals. It was, I realized, the relationship I'd always wanted with my adult son. I just hadn't known how to ask for it. Clara underwent a slower, but equally genuine transformation. The curated Instagram persona, the artfully arranged brunches, the unboxing videos, the performative luxury, faded away. In its place, she picked up a part-time bookkeeping gig, modestly paid, but honest work. It was the first time in their marriage she'd actively contributed to household income rather than just consuming it. She learned to cook. The first few attempts were disasters, oversalted soups, scorched stir-fries, but she persisted. She started clipping coupons. She discovered the wet market, the one I'd been shopping at for 20 years, and actually seemed to enjoy haggling with the vegetable lady. At month's end, they came to me with their ledger, sitting at my kitchen table like school children turning in homework. The entries were neat, complete, every yuan accounted for. And at the bottom of the last page, a small miracle, a positive balance. Small but positive. The smiles on their faces when I nodded my approval were brighter than any designer purchase had ever produced. Our relationship recalibrated into something new. There was more respect now, but less ease. They were unfailingly considerate. Weekly visits with Leo, fresh fruit and vegetables from the market, unhurried conversations over tea. But they never again asked me for money. Not a loan, not in advance, not even the traditional red envelopes at holidays, which they now politely but firmly declined. The boundary I'd drawn with that canceled bank card was invisible but indelible. It protected my old age. It had also, I understood, walled off a certain kind of intimacy. The unguarded closeness of a mother and son who've never had to keep accounts with each other. That was gone. Probably forever. I sat on my balcony sometimes, watching the children play in the courtyard below. I'd think of Leo, his round cheeks and his bubbling laugh, and warmth would spread through my chest. But it was always followed by something quieter, more solitary. An undertow of loneliness I hadn't anticipated. I'd clawed back my security, my dignity. The cost had been a wall between me and my only child that could never be fully dismantled. Whether the trade was worth it, that was a calculation I still hadn't resolved. One afternoon at the park, I ran into Mrs. Wong from across the hall. "Susan, you're so lucky," she said, beaming at me. "Your son and daughter-in-law have really turned around. Last week I saw Clara haggling over bok choy at the market entrance." Clara, the girl wouldn't have been caught dead in a wet market a year ago. You really whipped them into shape. I smiled, made some pleasantry, and continued my walk.
Lucky?
Maybe. I'd held my ground. Defended my 7,200 yuan pension, my paid-off apartment, my quiet and self-sufficient old age. I'd applied the harshest possible medicine to my son's addiction to dependency, and against all odds, he'd taken the cure. He was walking on his own now. By every objective measure, I'd won. But late at night, when the building was silent and the darkness pressed close, I sometimes found myself opening the red jewelry box. I'd take out the old, canceled bank card. I'd kept it, for reasons I couldn't quite articulate, and turn it over in my hands. The plastic was cold and personal. It still carried the ghost of that afternoon in the pharmacy, the shock of insufficiency, the steel I'd found in myself at the bank counter. If I could go back, would I make the same choice? I didn't have an answer. Maybe life was just a ledger that never balanced. Gains and losses, credits and debits, all flowing together into something too complex for tidy reconciliation. Right and wrong weren't always separate columns. Sometimes they bled into each other. What I knew was this: from now on, my ship would stay moored in a harbor I'd built with my own hands. Whatever storms blew outside, calm seas or howling gales, they were no longer my concern. I touched the small, cool key resting against my chest. It guarded my old age. It also locked away the softest part of my heart. That was the price of safe harbor. I was still learning to live with it,